So you talk about the knowing the practice or is as home or have the feeling of home
Yeah.
in your practice.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the desire to run away from home or to leave home?
That's an interesting question. So I never had the desire to stop practicing, but I did stop practicing. And I'll tell you what happened. So our son was 12. And when our son was younger, we would always have babysitters. We'd go off to practice together and he'd have a babysitter. When you're 12, you can't have a babysitter anymore. So I realized that we couldn't together run off to practice all the time. And I decided that it would be better if I stayed behind. That's how it started. I was just going to stay behind, take care of the kid. My husband would go to practice. And but I kept practicing at home. And I would go to like Sangha potlucks and stuff like that. And then I gradually stopped practicing at home, which was really bizarre because I believed in practice. I really believed in practice. Practice was my life direction. And I knew that, and I believed in practice, but I wasn't doing it. I just wasn't doing it, and I can't explain why. It wasn't a conscious thought. But I just wasn't doing it, and I did not do it for maybe a year and a half. It was a long time. And, you know, Stan, my husband, he's like, you should be practicing. And finally I said to him, you know, if you tell me to practice, I'm never going to practice again, because it has to come from me. It can't come from trying to please you. So he shut up about it. And then maybe a month or two later, I very secretly started practicing. You know, when he wasn't home, I'd, you know, do some, you know, say the 4 great vows, do some vows, you know, sit, but I didn't tell him. I didn't tell him for like 3 or 4 months. And then I told him, I'm practicing. And then we took turns at the Zen Center, because at that point our son was 14, and I thought, okay, you know, we can take turns. He doesn't need the same presence all the time. So yeah, so I experienced, it was not wanting to run away, but it was sort of falling away. And I'm really glad that that happened to me, because a lot of times when you've been practicing a long time, and especially if you're a teacher, and you'll judge people who are not practicing. You'll check them, you'll say, oh, this is no good, they should be practicing. But I remembered that I wasn't practicing. And I've been practicing for like, you know, like 14 years when I stopped practicing. So it was not inconsiderable, the amount of practice I'd done. And so I'm very grateful to that, because it gives me some kind of understanding of other people not practicing, not in the sense of understanding motivations, because motivations are just a story we make up, but just having some sympathy where, oh yeah, I know what it's like not to practice. So yeah, thank you for your question. Are there any other questions? Okay, another question. We do have to start sitting again at some point.
I find that I, like, my impediment, it seems like, is I get caught up in stories. Like I went out for a walk and I just catch myself caught up in this story or that story. And I just wondered if you have any thoughts on getting away from that.
You're the only one who does that. Yeah, that's everybody's situation. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that I always, well, first of all, just doing your practice when you're on the meditation cushion is really helpful. Also, if you're walking, doing a mantra can be helpful. What I find really helpful is looking at whatever is obsessing you. You know, like maybe, I don't know, maybe you're obsessed because your cat is sick. I don't know if you have a cat, I don't know if your cat's healthy, but maybe you have a cat and you're sick. And instead of, okay, my cat is sick, I'm going to take him to the vet, it's like, my cat is sick, what if it's this, what if it's that? You know, and your mind is going around all the possibilities of your sick cat and what you're going to do and what you shouldn't do and what they're feeling. And you know, just these stories we make up, everyone knows what that's like. You can look at that and say, look at the thought, look at the story. say, what is your substance? You know, are you made out of metal, wood, silk, cotton, earth? You know, what are you made out of? What's your color? Is the story red or blue or green? How much does it weigh? Is it light? Is it heavy? How big is it? Is it little? Is it big? And as you ask these questions, of course, you realize it has no substance. It doesn't have color, it doesn't have shape, it doesn't have size, it doesn't have weight, you know? It doesn't have sound. You can't touch it, your hand will go right through it, you know? And then eventually you realize it's just a bubble and it can go away. So I find that very helpful. Not everyone finds that helpful, but I find that helpful. I mean, you can say, oh, thoughts are not substantial. You can say that all you want, but they're going to grab us anyway. So if you look at them, what is your substance? What are you made out of? I find that helpful. Okay? Also, I should say that when you practice, you find that they kind of tend to start going away by themselves. So that's really important, that if you keep going back to your practice, whether it's counting your breaths or mantra or watching your breath or, you know, what am I, or, you know, what is this, or whatever it is, whatever your practice is, if you just keep coming back, just keep coming back, just keep coming back, then you loosen the hold that these patterns have on you. And you know, the content of the thought, whether it's about your cat or your house or world affairs or, you know, your hair, whatever it is, the content is not the point. The point is the way it attaches, the mechanism by which thoughts arise and then grab on and won't let go. That's what's the important thing to look at, is the mechanism of the thought, and then understanding that this is not necessary and not helpful. And again, it, you know, puts something between us and the world. Okay? Thank you. I'll go for one more question if there is one.
I actually have a suggestion. One Sunday,
Wait,
you have asked
start again.
I actually have a suggestion, not so much of a question, but one Sunday, just out of a blue, Stan just said, well, everybody just say something about what's your, like, what is your practice, you know? And I think maybe Julie, it could be benefit to hear, like, everybody, what people do, you know, when they walk, or what's your main practice?
You mean like now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like the recording to stop then,
Okay.
if we're going to do that.